The territory of modern Spain covers about 195,365 square miles, mainly on the Iberian Peninsula, sharing borders with Portugal to the west and France to the north, as well as the small principality of Andorra. Spain also controls the Balearic Islands in the Mediterranean, the Canary Islands in the Atlantic, and the two small North African enclaves of Ceuta and Melilla. However, this current size is only a shadow of Spain's former global reach. At the beginning of the 19th century, Spain claimed more than 5 million square miles across the Americas and parts of Asia, from California to Argentina, and even territories across the Pacific, such as the Philippines. Over 3 centuries, Spain had achieved one of the fastest expansions of any nation in history, becoming the first true global superpower. In the mid-15th century, Spain as a unified nation did not formally exist. The Iberian Peninsula was divided into several Christian kingdoms that had gradually reconquered lands previously under Muslim control since the early 8th century. Among these, Castile and Aragon were the most powerful and would later form the backbone of a unified Spain. The dynastic union between Isabella I of Castile and Ferdinand II of Aragon in 1469 was a turning point. This marriage consolidated their resources and power, enabling them to complete the Reconquista by expelling the Emirate of Granada in 1491 and, more importantly, to expand Spain's influence overseas. With the peninsula secure, the Catholic monarchs looked westward toward the Atlantic, inspired by Portugal's success in navigating African coasts to reach Asia. They aimed to establish direct sea trade routes and expand Spanish influence, seeking wealth, spices, and prestige. In this context, the Genoese navigator Christopher Columbus proposed reaching Asia by sailing west across the Atlantic. Initially rejected by Portugal, Columbus eventually secured Spanish support after years of petitions, demonstrating Spain's willingness to embrace innovation and take calculated risks. Columbus set sail on August 3, 1492, with 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria Letras. After more than 2 months at sea, he sighted land on October 12, 1492, in what he named San Salvador in the Bahamas, believing he had reached the Indies. He continued exploring northern Cuba and the island of Hispaniola, encountering unknown peoples and landscapes. Columbus returned to Spain in January of 1493, bringing news of lands not yet claimed by Europeans, which fueled Spanish ambitions and marked the beginning of a vast colonial empire. The Treaty of Tordesillas in 1494, mediated by Pope Alexander VI, divided the non-European world between Spain and Portugal, granting Spain most of the Americas while Portugal retained Brazil. This treaty allowed Spain to focus on colonization and exploration in the Western Hemisphere. Spanish settlements were quickly established, beginning with Santo Domingo in 1496. Cuba was conquered in 1515, and Havana became a key port and administrative center, laying the foundation for Spain's presence in the Caribbean. Spanish exploration extended to the American mainland. Vasco Onésio de Balboa crossed the Isthmus of Panama in 1513, becoming the first European to see the Pacific Ocean, expanding Spain's geographical knowledge and ambition for global influence. In Mexico, the Aztec Empire dominated much of the region from its capital Tenochtitlan, a city built on a lake with artificial causeways and complex infrastructure. Reports of the empire's wealth reached Cuba and prompted Hernán Cortés to lead an expedition in 1518, founding Veracruz as his base. Cortés arrived in Tenochtitlan, in Iwu-Icho, where Moctezuma II initially welcomed the Spaniards with awe and suspicion, perceiving them as possibly divine figures due to their armor and weapons. However, tensions escalated, leading to the Night of Sorrows in 1520, when the Spaniards were forced to flee, losing much of the treasure they had acquired. Cortés regrouped and besieged Tenochtitlan the following year, aided by European diseases such as smallpox, which devastated the native population. The fall of the Aztec Empire allowed Spain to establish Mexico City and the Viceroyalty of New Spain, forming the cornerstone of Spanish authority in North America. Further south, the Inca Empire controlled large parts of the Andes, including modern-day Peru, Ecuador, and Bolivia. Francisco Pizarro and Diego de Almagro led expeditions to conquer the Incas, encountering resistance, but also using smallpox to weaken the population ahead of the military conquest in the 1530s. The Viceroyalty of Peru was established in 1542 with Lima as its capital. Unlike courts in Mexico, Pizarro faced a more decentralized Inca society, as well as internal conflicts among the Spanish conquistadors, particularly between Pizarro and the Almagros, which prolonged the conquest. In North America, explorers such as Hernando de Soto mapped vast regions of what are now the southern United States. They encountered advanced mound-building cultures, including Cahokia and Etowah. But Spanish settlement focused on the southern and coastal regions, given richer and more easily exploitable lands further south. In the Rio de la Plata region, Juan Díaz de Solís, and later Pedro de Mendoza, explored Argentina and Europe, founding Buenos Aires in 1536. Settlement in these areas remained limited, and large regions stayed virtually uncolonized for decades. In Asia, Ferdinand Magellan's expedition, 1519 to 1522, reached the Philippines. Though these islands were technically in Portugal's sphere of influence under the Treaty of Tordesillas, it was not until 1571 that Manila was established as a Spanish colonial capital, giving Spain a strategic foothold in the East Indies. The discovery of gold and silver mines in Mexico, Peru, and Bolivia provided Spain with immense wealth. The Cerro Rico of Potosi, discovered in Iguazu, became a major source of silver, supplying a significant portion of the world's monetary flow while exploiting native labor under harsh conditions. The influx of precious metals caused widespread inflation in Spain and across Europe, known as the Price Revolution, but also funded the empire's military and administrative expansion across Europe and the Americas. Colonial society was complex, with peninsulares, Spanish-born officials, Criollos, Spanish descendants, born in the Americas, mestizos, mixed Spanish and indigenous heritage, and African slaves, especially in Caribbean plantations for sugar cultivation. By the 17th and 18th centuries, Spanish territorial expansion slowed. Major civilizations had already been conquered, and European rivals like England, France, and the Netherlands began to occupy lands that Spain had claimed but not effectively colonized. Colonial administration became increasingly rigid, and Criollos and mestizos began to question Spanish authority, gradually developing a sense of independence, which would later fuel revolutionary movements. The Napoleonic invasion of Spain in 1808 destabilized the empire and triggered independence movements across Latin America. Leaders such as Simon Bolivar, José de San Martín, and Miguel Hidalgo sought to free their nations from colonial rule. Between 1810 and 1826, most Spanish-American colonies achieved independence. Argentina in 1816, Chile in 1818, Mexico in 1821, and Colombia, Venezuela, and Peru soon after. This effectively ended Spain's vast overseas empire. Spain retained a few territories, including Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. But these colonies experienced constant insurgencies and calls for independence, challenging Spanish control well into the late 19th century. The Cuban War of Independence, beginning in 1895, became a decisive conflict. Prolonged fighting weakened Spanish authority and drew the intervention of the United States in 1898. The brief Spanish-American War resulted in Spain losing Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines, marking the end of its colonial empire and signaling the rise of U.S. influence in the Caribbean and Asia. After this defeat, Spain was left primarily as a European nation with limited global influence. Its centuries of overseas wealth, power, and prestige had come to an abrupt end, reflecting political instability and financial mismanagement. Spain's empire began with a Genoese sailor's vision, but it was built through decades of exploration, conquest, alliances with native populations, and exploitation of natural and human resources across continents. The Spanish legacy persists in cities, administration, religion, and language throughout Latin America and the Philippines, reflecting centuries of cultural and political influence. Yet this legacy is intertwined with violence, disease, and forced labor, which devastated indigenous populations and permanently altered societies across the Americas and Asia. The history of Spain's empire demonstrates both the ambition and capability of a nation to project power globally, as well as the limitations of central governance, whose mismanagement ultimately led to decline. In conclusion, Spain's 4-century-long empire began with Columbus's voyage, expanded through conquest and exploitation, brought immense wealth, and shaped world history, before ultimately collapsing in the face of new powers and revolutionary movements. By the end of the 19th century,